Gerrymandering is a problem nationwide, and in this video we are going to be talking about the states that had 8 congressional seats in the 2020 elections. In this gerrymandering series, we have been looking at how each state's congressional districts get drawn. We've started from the small states and are working our way up. But as we've already seen, some states do draw their lines as fairly as possible, and in other states, people get underrepresented. When the legislature draws a map in a partisan manner, it harms the electoral process. This is why I've created this video series to spotlight these problems and to ask for your help in fixing it. Together, we can fight gerrymandering and voter suppression. Please go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and contribute as little as $5 to help put the power back where it belongs, with the people. And now to the states. First up is Minnesota. Minnesota congressional districts are drawn via a partisan vote of the legislature that the governor may veto. The lines of the Minnesota congressional map are not that oddly drawn. District 6 is perhaps the most oddly shaped. In the 2020 congressional elections, 48% of the statewide vote went to the Democratic Farmer Labor Party in congressional races, and 46% of the vote went to the Republican Party. In the 2020 presidential elections in Minnesota, Joe Biden got 52% of the vote and Donald Trump got 45% of the vote. According to the formula I have been using, that means that half the state's congressional delegation should be Republican and the other half should be from the Democratic Farmer Labor Party, and this is how the election turned out. So no party gains an advantage in the control of Congress based on how the Minnesota lines are drawn, and the state of Minnesota fairly represents its citizens in Congress. Next is Wisconsin, where the lines are drawn in a partisan manner and can be vetoed by the governor. In the 2020 congressional elections in Wisconsin, 51.5% of the state voted for Republicans in Congress, and 48.5% of the state voted for Democrats for Congress. That shows about an equal 50-50 split. In the 2020 presidential elections in Wisconsin, 49.5% of the state voted for Joe Biden, and 48.8% of the state voted for Donald Trump. Again, the state is fairly split right down the middle. A fairly drawn map in Wisconsin would give us another 4-4 split of a state. However, only 3 of the seats in the state are held by Democrats, and the Republicans hold 5 seats. This was accomplished via packing. If you remember, packing is when the voters of one party are concentrated into one or more districts to reduce their overall influence. Districts 2 and 4 are packed with Democrats, getting roughly 70% of the vote and 75% of the vote respectively. Because of the gerrymandering by the Republican-controlled legislature, Wisconsin gives the National Republican Party a 1-seat advantage in controlling Congress. Next is Missouri, a state that draws congressional districts by a partisan vote of the legislature that can be vetoed by the governor. In the 2020 congressional elections in Missouri, 58% of the state voted for a Republican for Congress, while 39% of the state voted for a Democrat for Congress. In the 2020 presidential election in Missouri, Donald Trump got 57% of the vote, and Joe Biden got 41% of the vote. By the formula, this means that there should be 5 Republican seats and 3 Democratic seats. However, there are only 2 Democrats representing Missouri in Congress. The reason why is that in District 1, 79% of the votes are packed in for the Democrats, while neighbor District 2 was drawn to only have 45% of the Democrats in that district. Draw the lines in a slightly different way between Districts 1 and 2, and you'll have 2 Democrats representing the area and a more equitable representation of the electorate in Congress from Missouri. So, Missouri adds another seat to the overall advantage that the Republicans have so far in controlling Congress nationwide. The last 8-seat state is the state I grew up in, Maryland. Maryland congressional districts are drawn by a partisan vote of the legislature and can be vetoed by the governor. Maryland congressional districts are ugly. I mean, they are flat out ridiculously drawn. It makes you wonder if someone was both nervous and drunk while drawing them. In the 2020 congressional elections in Maryland, 65% of the state voted for Democrats, while 35% of the state voted for Republicans. The presidential election results were quite similar. 65% of the state voted for Joe Biden, and 33% of the state voted for Donald Trump. According to the formula I have been using, this means there should be 5 Democratic seats in Maryland and 3 Republican seats. However, the Democrats control 7 overall seats, while the Republicans control only 1. Maryland does not adequately represent their Republicans in Congress. This also gives the Democrats a 2-seat advantage towards control of Congress nationwide. At the end of the day, when looking at the states with 8 congressional seats, no overall advantage is gained by either party, despite 3 out of the 4 states failing to adequately represent their population in Congress. If you want to help stop gerrymandering and voter suppression, you can go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and make a contribution. I've partnered with Levelfield, and they are helping me to use the tools the big players use to push for change. But I need your help to make it work. So go to stopthecoup.liberaldan.com and help fight back. That's stopthecoup.liberaldan.com. And please remember to smash that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you can know when my next videos are coming out. And also remember to tune into my live stream podcast here on YouTube at 8 p.m. Central every Wednesday.